Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, and we're going to begin today with a snake warning. If these scaly critters give you the heebie-jeebies, you should probably skip this video. While it has no actual snakes, it has some very snake-like monsters, which will be depicted on your screens, because today I will be talking about the 2007 fantasy adventure Dragon Wars, or D-War as it was known in its native South Korea. And our main character for the film is Ethan Kendrick. Seemingly an ordinary news television anchor, Ethan is actually the latest in a long line of protectors charged since childhood with the task of protecting the prophesied Yo-Yi-Ju. The Yo-Yi-Ju, it turns out, is the one individual with the power to elevate a normal dragon into a true celestial dragon. A normal dragon is, in this case, basically an enormous snake thing, hundreds of feet long, much like those on your screen. It's fully capable of swallowing an entire car and practically immune to just about anything short of a cluster bomb. As you might imagine, given how immensely powerful these creatures are, even in their normal state, it is vital that the Yo-Yi-Ju's gift not be misused on an unworthy candidate, since a celestial dragon is a whole nother level of power. And wouldn't you know it, there's an unworthy but very eager candidate on the scene, the corrupt dragon Baraki, whose armies have already ravaged 16th century Korea in an effort to claim the prophesied power, and who now invades modern-day Los Angeles in pursuit of the Yo-Yi-Ju. The power Baraki seeks now rests with a young woman named Sarah Daniels. Surprise, surprise, romantic sparks immediately fly between Ethan and Sarah when they're thrown together, and that certainly complicates their mission, because if Ethan cannot protect Sarah from Baraki, his final and most difficult duty is to ensure that she does not survive for her power to be misused. Can Ethan find a way to thwart the evil dragon and his army of reptilian abominations, or will his only resort be to sacrifice the woman he has grown to love, as other protectors have had to do before him? So Dragon Wars enjoyed considerable box office success in its home country, though given that it went wildly over budget, it probably still was not a particular financial winner. But the critical reception was rather more tepid, with largely negative reviews from English-language reviewers who criticised the film's writing and acting. And I've got to be honest, I can't really argue with those complaints. The script's pacing is very wonky, it's pretty much jam-packed with Deus Ex Machina moments, and the dialogue is clumsy. As for the acting, well, let's be kind and call it uneven. And yet, despite all of that, I still thoroughly enjoyed Dragon Wars the first time I saw it, and while I didn't think it held up as well on a rewatch, the film does have its gonzo charms. So while I do and will acknowledge its flaws, let's talk about the positives first. So you may remember the movie Reign of Fire, which had a poster that depicted dragons and helicopters locked in aerial battle. That promise went completely unfulfilled in the movie. Basically, Reign of Fire had no such scene, but Dragon Wars has no intention of shortchanging you in the same way on the monster versus machine action. The film begins as it means to go on, with rocket launchers on dinosaurs. Now, admittedly, in this opening battle scene, we're in the 1500s, and the Dino Horde are mostly just facing guys with bows and swords, which is as one-sided as you might expect. But of course, later in the movie, they're tangling with the US Army, which means you get tanks, helicopters, and automatic weapons up against armies of guys riding velociraptors, backed up by all kinds of reptilian nightmares. And I think the movie's decision to have the 16th century battle at the start of the film is actually pretty smart. It's a significant contributor to the success of the modern-day confrontation. The early battle establishes the capabilities of the Saurian forces, and the shift to the current era immediately primes the audience to start thinking about what would happen if they had to face off against modern military hardware. It's lots of fun both to anticipate and to watch, and it's easily the film's best sequence. Now, it's worth mentioning here that Dragon Wars is 15 years old. The scope and scale of the scene and the quality effects, while very good for the time, are not in the same league as more recent blockbusters like Avengers Endgame. But then very few films are Avengers Endgame. Dragon Wars, therefore, has some spectacular action sequences, but it's got its problems as well. A key one that I've already mentioned, in passing, is its pacing. The film has multiple issues on this front, starting from its very first moments. You see, the film kicks off with a flashback, in which a character has yet another flashback. One flashback is bad enough. Flashback inception like this is a definite scripting no-no. While the flashback within a flashback does lead to the first battle scene, which is a fun time, there really wasn't any reason not to lead with the battle. That would have got the movie off to an explosive start, both literally and figuratively, and then after a 500 years later jump cut, it would have been easily contextualised the preceding scene in incidental dialogue. Instead, the movie lumbers at the start with lots of talky talk that only slowly moves into high-octane action. On the flip side, once the movie does hit modern day, the Buyarki starts chasing Ethan and Sarah, the script falls into the Michael Bay trap. Buyarki chases them, they run away, lather, rinse, repeat. Buyarki chases Sarah and Ethan is pretty much the entire plot for most of the film. Much like Merrick chases Lincoln and Jordan sums up the entire narrative of Bay's 2005 offering The Island. The thing about The Island, though, is that it's anchored by leading performances from Ewan McGregor, Scarlett Johansson and Sean Bean. That's quite the quality cast, a trio who know how to make the most of even the thinnest of characters and plots. They can sell the movies a few attempts to invoke emotional pathos, and they can hit a humorous beat when they need to. Dragon Wars attempts to do something other than action spectacle, on the other hand, are generally not successful. It occasionally stumbles into a moment of humour, but the more obviously it tries to do something funny or emotionally affecting, the less effective it tends to be. Now, to be fair to writer-director Shim Hyung Rae, he was working with a primarily English-speaking cast in a primarily English-speaking movie, when that is obviously not his own native tongue. Presumably a decision made with a view towards the international box office, in much the same way that a lot of recent US releases have made alterations to ensure that they secure a release in China. And that doubtless complicated the task of getting optimal performances. Still, if you've made that decision, you need to account for it. The result is a frequently clumsy and ungainly movie that is at its best when it stops trying to didactically tell you the story and just engages in gonzo action excess. It's not a technically good film, but if what you're looking for is monsters and explosions, it's a pretty fun bit of schlock. Next time, the transcendentally terrible 1974 Western thriller, and I use that word fairly loosely, Treasure of Tiopa, a film whose flaws make it far more interesting to talk about than it is to watch. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.